Good morning. Welcome to the Board of Water and Power Commissioners meeting. Today is Tuesday, June 9th. This proceeding is broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35.
Good morning. I'm Joseph Brivich, General Counsel for the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. This is our regularly scheduled board meeting for June 9th, 2020. With me in the boardroom today are Commission Vice President Cynthia McLean-Hill, Commissioner Susana Reyes, and General Manager and Chief Engineer Marty Adams, and some limited staff along with the Board Secretary. Pursuant to Governor Newsom's order of March 17th of this year, some of our members are appearing telephonically. Also consistent with that order, all public comment will be taken telephonically. For members of the public wishing to call in, please call in 213-306-3065. Again, that number is 213-306-3065. And when prompted, please enter the meeting code 146-598-7833. Again, that's 146-598-7833. When you do call in, please advise whether you're calling for general public comment or a specific item number. You will be allocated 2 minutes per item for a total of 5 minutes. Please, if you are watching the meeting on your computer, turn off the volume so that you don't get feedback when calling in. Board members, at this time, the board secretary will take roll, and when she does so, if you could please advise if you would like any items pulled for discussion. Madam Board Secretary.
Commissioners, please say present. Berard, absent. Levine.
Present.
McLean-Hill.
Present.
Neiman Brady.
Present.
And Reyes.
Present. I would like to pull items 15 and 16.
4 members present and a quorum. Opening the board meeting by President Levine.
Thank you, Susie. I have a few opening remarks. The first ones will sound familiar because I've repeated them every time we've had a virtual meeting, so I won't go into detail, but again, I want to compliment and praise our incredible staff in terms of all the things that they've been able to do and the flexibility that they've shown under these unbelievably trying circumstances to continue to reliably deliver water and power to our ratepayers. If someone writes up this period in our history, which they should, it will be extraordinarily impressive to show the creativity and tenacity and professionalism of our staff. And I want to compliment our senior staff and our general manager along the same lines for leading the staff to being as effective as it has been. And I also, again, want to compliment our mayor for his leadership in this trifecta of crises: pandemic, economy, protests that are necessary, and for the leadership that he's shown both for the department and for the city. There's one other matter that I would like to bring to my colleagues' attention that I just learned about in the last 24 hours, or maybe the last 48 hours, but which has potentially devastating consequences to our clean energy goals. I learned that completely unintentionally, the language of the so-called split roll initiative, which has qualified for the ballot, includes language that would be devastating to the solar industry in California. I'm going to outline very briefly why that is, and urge our staff to aggressively pursue this immediately. Since 1980, commercial and utility scale solar projects have been partially excluded from annual property tax assessments. If the split roll measure passes and no corrective action is taken in advance of that, utility scale and commercial solar systems would become taxable at their full fair market value as of January 1st, 2022. Since revenues are fixed for these projects for over 20 years, with the benefits of the solar tax exclusion passed through to customers in the form of lower rates, the unexpected tax increase could cause many of the existing solar power plants to be forced to default. And in addition to that, planned solar and solar storage projects with contracts may well become both economically unviable and unfinanceable. When projects default or are able to renegotiate their existing contracts, the process involves many parties, including partners, investors, banks, contracting agencies, and in many cases, may require DWP review and approval of contract changes. Overall, this override of existing law adopted by California voters in Prop 7 back in 1980 can take years to sort out for each project. So in addition, if this goes uncorrected, in addition to raising electricity rates, the measure's passage would set back California's climate efforts and chill investor confidence in California's energy market, which could well result in withheld investments or new financing risk premiums for all renewable energy projects in the state. I brought this to Marty's attention late yesterday, and he and Louis Ting had an exchange. I'd appreciate either Marty or Louis addressing how this looks and their thoughts about what can be done about it. I don't think I've ever before used my opening remarks to talk about a piece of legislation, but this one has potentially, this is, and I'm not even sure what the piece of legislation needs to be, but this issue has such potentially dire consequences for our clean energy agenda, and the time frame on it is extremely short, I understand, a matter of days, that I wanted to be sure that our staff and my colleagues are aware of it. Those are my opening remarks, and we'll now go to public comment.
Hello. We'll now commence with the public comment session. I'll begin by announcing the caller number, then area code and prefix. As I unmute you, please state your full name and the item number you're calling in to discuss. Please be mindful that you have 2 minutes for comment, and we will let you know when you're nearing the end of your time. Beginning with caller number 7, area code 202 with prefix 842. Please announce your full name and your item for comment. You are now ready to speak.
Yes, this is John Stickman with the law firm of Duncan & Allen. It sounds like item 16 has been withdrawn. We submitted a protest regarding item 16.
Just for clarification, it has not been withdrawn. It has been pulled for discussion, but the item is still on the agenda.
Okay, so would it be appropriate for me to provide comments now, or?
Yes, it would. This would be the time to provide. This would be the time to provide comments.
Okay, perfect. I represent the city of Burbank and the city of Glendale, and as detailed in the protest, the cities have grave concerns regarding LADWP's refusal to allow them to use their transmission service agreements with LADWP, which are referred to as the TSAs in the protest, to participate in the EIM. Of particular concern is that this refusal will cause significant financial and environmental harm to LADWP's and the city's ratepayers by reducing the transmission available for both cities to import low-cost, renewable EIM generation into the LA basin. If the city's TSA transmission were included in the EIM, the total amount of transmission available to LADWP to participate in the EIM would increase whenever this TSA transmission capacity was not being used by the city. This resulting increase in the pool transmission capacity would expand the volume of opportunities to buy both low-cost and renewable excess energy from the ISO EIM. This would significantly increase the amount of renewables that LADWP could import into the LA Basin. Such purchases are significant because of their environmental impacts. So by depriving everyone in the region of these significant environmental impacts, LADWP's decision undermines the City of Los Angeles' ability to meet Mayor Garcetti's goals specified in his Green New Deal, while also harming the city's ability to meet their individual goals, the cities of Burbank, Glendale. In response to these irrefutable financial and environmental benefits to both the city's ratepayers and LADWP's ratepayers, the GM certificate and the supplemental GM certificate make a series of arguments which attempt to diminish and undercut these benefits. These arguments should be rejected because, as you'll see in the protest, they directly contradict LADWP's management's prior statements to this very board regarding how LADWP plans to participate in the EIM and the benefits it will provide. And they further demonstrate that this refusal to allow the cities to use their TSA transmission to participate in the EIM represents a fundamental misunderstanding of how the EIM will work and how it will benefit. This refusal to allow the cities to utilize their TSAs also violates Attachment O to LADWP's proposed OAT, which is going to be up for review today, and also is inconsistent with every other entity's treatment of these exact same type of contracts. In addition, it is inconsistent with LADWP's own treatment of identical type contracts with third parties. So LADWP is allowing its marketing divisions to utilize these contracts, but it's not allowing the cities to do so. So it's not only economically and financially problematic, it's also illegal and violates longstanding FERC precedent that prohibits such anti-discriminatory behavior. In addition, because the cities are required to utilize their TSAs to participate in the EIM, if they are prevented from doing so, they will not be able to participate in the EIM. Finally, by refusing to allow the cities to use their TSAs, it is also a violation of the anti-monopolization and anti-tying requirements of Section 1 and 2 of the Sherman Act and Section 3 of the Clayton Act, which prohibit LADWP from this very conditioning of transmission customers' access to the EIM on them purchasing separate and distinct and unnecessary OAT transmission.
Mr. Stigman, can you wrap up your remarks, please?
Yes, this is the final. Therefore, the city's protest requests that the board reject LADWP's proposed EIM OAT amendments, suspend the EIM amendment process until the issues raised in their protest are resolved, and direct LADWP staff to adopt each of the proposals presented in this protest in order to expedite resolution of this dispute. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. Caller 10 with the prefix area code of 323 and prefix of 491. You are now unmuted. Please state your full name and the topic you would like to comment on.
Good morning. My name is Agustin Cabrera. I am speaking on general public comment. I'm with the Los Angeles Alliance for New Economy and lead the Repower LA Coalition, which we've talked many times to this board. We represent a diverse group of environmental justice, labor, and community-based organizations. I want to give a quick comment on sort of the events of the last week. We've seen how the murder of George Floyd and all the other black folks killed by the police have impacted our city and country. We're seeing the collective organizing and movement building that has been happening across LA County. And we know that Black Lives Matter, and we stand unequivocally with our comrades fighting the liberation of black people here and everywhere. We stand with our partners, black-led organizations, as they demand our city leaders to fund the police and adopt the people's budget. This is a necessary bold step in a series of changes we need to dismantle the racist systems endangering the lives of black and brown Angelinos. as we call on the mayor and the city council to prioritize housing, healthcare, education, and jobs, and not cops, we also call on the DWP to examine their role in achieving racial justice and standing with Black Lives Matter. Although the department does not have any direct impact on police spending, every city agency must do their responsible role in examining racial justice. We urge the LADWP to aggressively invest in communities of color, particularly the Black community, with the utilities, especially in this moment of the public health crisis. One way of doing that is to committing to realizing the promise of the Equity Metrics Data Initiative, which is an essential step to collecting and evaluating data that will make it possible to identify geographic and demographic disparities in DWP services, programs, and projects. EMDI already shines a light on LADWP's historic disinvestment in low-income communities like South LA, Watts, and Wilmington. Through the EMDI, communities need additional information such as geographic or neighborhood demographic data that would allow community members themselves to understand what these numbers mean and take action to increase resources in their own community. DWP's investment needs to be community-led. Additionally, the department needs to have more aggressive goals to promote racial equity and access to training programs and employment for Black Angelenos in all positions throughout the department. Lastly, and more importantly, the DWP should engage Black-led organizations and community leaders on how to most effectively invest in communities of color. We look forward, as usual, to continuing work with DWP staff and board to make sure that this public utility fulfills its promise to be for the people. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. That is the conclusion of public comments at this time.
All public comment is now closed.
Thank you, Susie. We'll now move to General Manager.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's great to see everyone and see two of you in person. So this is a step in the right direction, I hope. And I hope it's not too far in the future that we will have everybody here as well for a board meeting. And I look forward to seeing the boardroom full of folks again. I never realized how much I would miss having everybody around. Speaking of that, in terms of being around, we'll talk a little more about how the department's doing with response to COVID in a few minutes when it comes to that report. I wanted to first focus on the issues of last week with the social unrest and the protests and really the kind of call to action that we've seen nationally as well as here in the city with continuing calls on a daily basis. First, from the work standpoint, the department has functioned through this very well. We've done what we needed to keep our crews out of areas where we felt that they may be in danger because any official vehicles and people in uniform, may or may not have been an issue in the crowds. And so we've done what we need to keep the water and power running, to take care of repairs, take care of addressing outages, and at the same time, make sure our workforce was able to perform the work safely. At the same time, we realize that we have a lot of folks here in our staff who've probably been affected personally by the same issues that we see coming up in the press, and probably experienced that in growing up, whether it's in Los Angeles or other areas. We do actually have a workforce that very well reflects the makeup of the city of Los Angeles. However, the numbers alone are a little deceiving because there's not opportunity in every area with every kind of job that we have here. And so one of the things that we've been working on and are going to renew efforts on is really creating more opportunities for local residents for jobs, and especially for the folks who do not have the economic opportunities, or maybe the chance in their background they haven't had the opportunities for school or other avenues that would help them get some of the really good, solid paying civil service jobs that we have here. And so we're trying to make jobs at every level and every kind, whether they're professional jobs or skilled craft jobs or any kind of jobs we have, available to everyone in the city of Los Angeles, and certainly working with the underserved communities to really make ourselves more available and more well known, to know about the kind of work that we are doing here. Our workforce has been very sensitive to these issues. I've talked to a number of the folks that are on the building the last couple days. I think that people have a sense of the traditional family setting at the department continues to exist. There's obviously a lot of stress. Luckily, it does not appear to be stress among employees, but just stress in everyone's life. And so we're trying to make sure that we're very sensitive to those issues and really doing what we need to do to support our workforce and support them not just at work, but whatever they're going through personally, and especially because some of these issues bring up probably memories of things that have happened in their lives, and to really get us to understand each other better and the experiences that people bring in their upbringing to where they come to work, to make sure that work is a place where they can feel safe and productive and valued, and we stress that very much among our workforce. When I look at moving forward, we had plans to move forward coming out of the COVID crisis, and now I think our plans are going to be even more broad, because where we had opportunities to really lift up the city and really drive the city from an economic standpoint, I now feel that as one of the few agencies that will have opportunity for hiring, and that we have continued job growth and job availability, even following the COVID crisis and the economic downturn, we really have an obligation to really serve the city and to serve the residents in every way. So whether it's in customer service and helping our customers with their bills, whether it's customer-centered programs, and as one of the speakers mentioned, equity metrics reveal that we really needed to change some of our programs, our solar programs, our ability to rebate used electric vehicles, where we've spread electric chargers so that electric vehicles can be a reality throughout the entire city. Those kind of programs, we've been evolving those and need to continue to do so. At the same time, looking forward to opportunities to really look at our hiring practices, make sure that jobs are known and available throughout the city, and so that every community has an opportunity to find the good paying jobs and the long-term career jobs that we have at the department. We know that we have a continued workforce need. We have infrastructure work. We have moving toward the future with green power and locally sourced water, and that's going to require an ongoing skilled labor force for decades and decades. And so we hope that we'll engage more residents, particularly people of color, to really find a home here at the department and find access to jobs that they may not have been found accessible or known how to get into before, or maybe not even known about the jobs existing. So we'll continue in those efforts moving forward, and we'll have more outlined in the near future about what we're doing to do that. I have a plan already for how we're looking to help get the city out of the economic impacts of the COVID virus, and so we'll be building on that with the latest issues to really see how we become not just an economic impact, but also an arm for social justice in the city of Los Angeles. To help me get some of these things done, we have added some new executive staff. This week I had 2 new executive assistant AGMs start, and next Monday a third will start. They're here today. It's Paul Habib, Doug Tripp, and Ty Washington. I don't know if the camera goes back. I know the board members who are here have had a chance to meet them. They have city experience. They're very capable, highly energetic, and very bright. And so I will expect that a lot of our efforts will be moving much more quickly forward, including not only how we help the community and reach out to the community, how we recruit locally, how we interact with developers in terms of assisting them to move their projects along, because we realize that construction will be one of the ways out for the city during following the pandemic. And so really want to really amp up what we do as a department to make sure that we're being the best and the most beneficial we can to the city of Los Angeles.
Marty?
Yes, ma'am.
Marty, this is Nicole. Could you please circulate their names and their roles and bios to the board members?
I will. Actually, I have a memo coming out, and I've had so many other memos I haven't had a chance to finish it, but it'll be out probably today about that. So yes, so I'll circulate that, and and they will be available to assist in a variety of areas, not just myself, but also the other senior staff members, and certainly if the board has issues, they're people who can help deliver on projects and goals that we have. To get to Commissioner President Levine's issue about the split roll initiative, we're not agendized to discuss it, but I do want to bring up where we are because it is a time-sensitive issue. This has to do with almost the accidental taxation of or loss of tax benefits for the large solar developments in the state. And so it was not the intention of the authors to do this, and there are efforts right now to find workarounds, but the way the legislation or the ballot measure is currently written, it would potentially lose the tax benefit for large solar development. To what this could mean to us, it could mean an addition of about $6 per megawatt hour on Elan project, which is about a 30% increase. So a project like that we so much celebrated, the Elan project, which would be the largest solar battery installation, could be potentially unaffordable or not, or cannot maybe not pursue it from the developer standpoint. It could drive a 20 to 40% increase in electricity from solar energy going forward in the state. Interestingly and very sadly, a lot of retirement plans invest in things like solar energy and other infrastructure programs. There's hundreds of millions of dollars of money in the California State Teachers Pension that's invested in California-based solar energy. That also could be at risk. So there's widespread potential impacts from this if we don't get in front of it. So unless the board has objection, we'll continue to engage as a staff to make sure that this doesn't happen. It could be, as President Levine said, be very detrimental to our plans for renewable energy. It could really set us backwards and really raise the costs at a time when solar was becoming one of the more affordable sources of energy and overall costs were decreasing rapidly with the large solar projects. This could certainly set us backwards on that. And so it's definitely a serious risk to the state and all the state's goals. I think the ballot measure did not intend for that to happen, but in the land of unintended consequences, it's a very real one that we need to be worried about, and it'll affect, as President Levine said, not just us, but people throughout the state. What it could do is end up driving more renewable energy to be purchased from out of state, which of course is a loss of California jobs. It's an increase in transmission needs. And so, and it's just puts more strain on the system to import energy from that much further away. So it's something we definitely need to keep our eye on. Lastly, I wanted Andy Kendall, if Andy is back in his office, he was up here a moment ago. Can you just brief us quickly, Andy, on the wind events that preceded our little heat wave here? And I know we had about 15,000 customers out yesterday morning, and how we're doing on that?
Yeah, so the winds picked up Sunday night. And as Marty said, over the course of the day, we had about 15,000 customers out, mainly due to trees. We had several areas where we had trees and branches fall over and take down our conductors. We had everybody back on. I think as of now, we have about 50 customers out throughout the city, which is kind of normal for this time of day. So it was really quick. Sort of a one-day windstorm that came in and then left and calmed down almost as quickly as it came in. So we were able to manage it with the existing staff we had. We didn't need to call in existing workers or bring in our contractors. So overall, it went really well. I've noticed this morning, just getting into my office and looking, we've had sort of a couple different brush fires in the city, one by the Hollywood Bowl and one over in El Sereno. They were extinguished relatively quickly, but it's just something that we're continuing to work here with our staff and manage, and looking at the red flags warning and make sure that our staff is acting appropriately as far as not doing anything to exacerbate that situation. So.
Thank you, Kenny. So just to conclude my comments, again, I will be bringing back some plans to the board for moving out of both the COVID pandemic issues as well as the social issues that we find ourselves facing, how this department will position itself to really help move the city forward and really put us in the right direction and really serve the community of Los Angeles as best we possibly can.
Okay, thank you, Marty. Susie, do you just want to call individual commissioners one by one in terms of potential comments?
Yes. McLean Hill?
Thank you. I should have written it down. I didn't, and I regret that at this moment. Clearly, this has been a tumultuous time in the history of the city, the nation, and the world. We have, I think, the President Levine has, quite rightly saluted the department's capacity to operate, the leadership of the department and the work of everybody here during this incredibly difficult period. With respect to the events of the last 2 weeks, there is a particular moment that stands out for me. Or I think it was the first, maybe second night, someone wrote on the roof, "Can you hear me now?" And it comes back up in this moment, largely because I joined this board maybe not quite 2 years ago. And I know that in very short order, it became clear to me that among the things that this board could do was serve as an economic engine, an engine for development, for job creation, that the contribution that we could make beyond offering water and power and serving our residents and the Green New Deal was to do it in a way that we provided opportunity to local residents, and in particular that we were able to invest in the communities that often go underinvested, and the communities that frankly are at the forefront of today's protest. We've created a committee to work on it. Commissioner Reyes joined the board and took up leadership around the very same issues, so I am somewhat distressed to have today be the day that this become a priority for this department. I'm also incredibly concerned about, as I think through, the last time we had the equity metrics presented to this board. If you'll recall, the critique of that presentation was there were no benchmarks. It was presented in a way that prettied up the information and that in a very superficial way checked the boxes. There has never been a lack of a policy failure in the city of Los Angeles. We are represented by the most progressive legislators, council members, mayor that you could find anywhere. There are good people all over doing hard work. But the urgency that we bring to that work, the leadership that we bring to that work, and what we choose to prioritize has been lacking with respect to equity and social justice in this department and throughout this city. I fully appreciate the commitment that you have expressed. I do want to say that I'm not a potted plant, and neither is any other commissioner here. So I would like there to be some acknowledgement that you will be working with this board as it relates to both the goals and the policies and even the manner in which we will seek to achieve these objectives. This isn't an individual thing. This is something that is coming from the very top as it relates to how we lead moving forward. I am thrilled to see that you've enhanced your support, because among the things we need are more people directed at these kinds of issues. And they go to how we invest, how we hire, how we contract, in ways that really do transform how this city performs and how we perform for the city, how we engage with our communities. And in that regard, we've done kind of what we need to do at the surface level, but we've not gone deeper than that. We can and we should.
Very nicely put, Cynthia. Very well put.
Thank you.
Commissioner Reyes?
So first I want to make an announcement on June 11th, this coming Thursday at 10 a.m. I will be joining Public Works Commissioner Jessica Caloza in welcoming some 700 participants in a 3-part webinar by Accessing LA. It's a network platform to provide information about the process and opportunities to do business with the city and with LADWP. So Erin Henning, our Director of Supply Chain Services, will be part of the panel. So I encourage businesses to learn about contracting with the city, with DWP, what financial assistance is available, the certification guidance, and much more. I think it's a very timely project that we're embarking on. The webinar will be via Zoom, and you can register at June 11 Access LA, one word, June 11 Access LA online. I encourage small and women and minority-owned businesses to register for this webinar. I just want to echo Vice President McLean Hill's remarks. It's really been a tough week. I want to express solidarity with the Black community. I joined together to call for justice for Black people who have been victims of racial violence. Right now, the really difficult conversations are happening. And in this historic moment, it's critical that those of us with platforms, power, and privilege take a step back to really listen, acknowledge, and lift up the voices of those who don't. This fight is not new. And although there has been a shift, an awakening, I want to acknowledge that there's still so much work to be done. Now more than ever, I, as a member of this board, want to seize this moment to ask every member of this organization to reflect, listen, and learn. The fight against racism begins with being informed. Learn about your own inherent bias, even if you don't think you hold any. Push back on prejudice in your own social circles, even if it requires awkward conversations, and show up for our Black and brown coworkers. We have years of practices and culture that we need to actively reshape in order to make equality a reality. So having said that, I would like the department to develop and conduct training on dismantling racism and a training on implicit or unconscious bias. Understanding racism and bias in the workplace is the first step to managing it. The nationwide protests raise awareness, and I want to bring that mentality and energy to the rooms where critical business decisions and policies are shaped. I thank General Manager Marty Adams for the sound statement that you made for our employees, to our employees about these challenging times. And I'm proud that LADWP is committed to equity, inclusion, mutual respect, and empathy. Equity, especially racial equity, is a work in progress, and that is a critical piece in building the foundation where future generations will never have to experience such injustices. We each have the power and the platform to lead change. Anyone at any level in this organization can take small steps to exercise that greater compassion and initiate action that provides needed support and promotes racial justice for our Black workers, as well as others who are marginalized. Managers have a particularly important role in connecting with their employees on these issues. If there aren't any high-level people in executive positions, is there a way to change that? Status quo is no longer acceptable. Therefore, I would like the department to look into establishing a 1-year pilot mentorship program for Black employees starting this summer, and to report back to the board by December 2020 on outcomes and recommendations for program expansion. How we advance racial equity within our own workplaces reflects our readiness to work with others externally through our services and programs that we provide that embody our values. We might have well-meaning rebates, incentives, discount programs, projects, but they can only go so far if they fail to take a broader view of inequalities. Our work in clean energy, clean water, clean air, energy efficiency, infrastructure, they're all inextricably intertwined with racial and climate justice. It's also critical to ensure the absolute highest level of protections for our vulnerable households facing disconnection during this COVID time. So that equity push may sound good, but without an eye towards transformative changes, our programs will fail to produce the desired outcomes. So applying that racial justice lens will sharpen our focus and deepen that analysis. I also joined the city's efforts to enact reforms, undo structural racism, and prioritize Black and Brown communities that lack basic resources. Lastly, I just want to encourage everyone, let's all work together to dismantle racism that underpins virtually every aspect of our country right now. It's hard work, it's uncomfortable, it's frustrating, but nothing worth doing that is going to be easy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Commissioner Neiman Brady.
Thank you. First, I'd like to commend both Commissioner Reyes and Commissioner McLean-Hill on their comments. Commissioner McLean's comments were particularly poignant, direct, and draw attention to the pressing need for action to improve everything we're doing from an equity metrics perspective. And I applaud those suggestions and support them. In terms of Commissioner Reyes's comments, I also thank you for making those. I am very supportive of a lot of the recommendations you made and would like to reinforce the benefits, I think, of doing unconscious bias assessments. I was surprised myself when I took one. Actually, you can find quite a few online that are useful. And I was surprised to find that I have, for instance, one that I had no idea about, which is I favor or trust elderly white women. And I learned it probably stems from the outsized influence my grandmothers played in my upbringing. But it was interesting to know that I even had that, which I had no idea. And my point is that you have no idea what your biases are if you don't do some sort of assessment. There are the overt ones you probably do know about, but there are some that you just don't even know about. And so I agree with that suggestion and many of the others that you made. In terms of areas I still would like to have addressed, I had raised the issue of better understanding the hiring practices of the city and LADWP. I would like to reinforce my desire to have that presentation, to have city employee come forward and explain that process, and then to follow up with the portion that I know Linda is prepared to deliver, but we need that first the city employees to do their part. I think it is even more critical now that we take a look at that process, particularly in light of the fact that we are one of the few entities who are able to hire. So I would like to request that be re-agendized, and despite our being remote, that we really tackle that issue. And lastly, I had not held any of the items, but in light of Fred's memo that I have not had time to consider, I'd like item 11 to be held for discussion, and perhaps those comments that Fred has can be held for that time for discussion. And also, I have some questions now as it relates to item 16, given the Burbank and Glendale commentary from their attorney. Thank you.
Thank you all. Those, I would say, cumulatively were the most constructive and actually inspiring public comments that I've heard in a single meeting in all of the years that I have been a member of this board. I thank all my colleagues for them. Fred, I guess your comments to item 11 have triggered item 11 being pulled. So do you have comments on any other items or anything else you'd like to comment on right now?
I do have one comment. One, I'll save my comments on 11 for the discussion on 11. I would like to let the board know that the equity metrics were specifically established without goals and intentionally, but the investor-owned utilities in California have what I call various forms of soft goals in this area. I think we should explore those as we think about expanding what could be included in equity metrics related goals. And in addition, the commodity purchasing part of our equity metrics does not include things like natural gas purchases, which have the investor-owned utilities have goals for things like natural gas purchases. So I think we should look at both what's in the list and what are reasonable implementations. Some of these goals can be, by my experience, established and achieved fairly quickly. Hiring takes longer.
Thank you. Item 6, discussion with neighborhood council representatives on any neighborhood council resolution or community impact statement filed with the city clerk, which relate to any agenda item listed or being considered on this agenda for the Water and Power Board.
No community impact statements or formal positions were filed by any neighborhood councils on the items on today's agenda.
Thank you, Susie. Okay, well, of the 6 items that are on the public agenda, we have 3 that are pulled, 11, 15, and 16. So the items that are still available for a consent vote are items 10, 12, and 13. Does anybody wish to move approval of those 3 items?
14, Commissioner, item 14?
I'm sorry, 12, wait a sec, 10, 12, 13, and 14. Yeah, yes.
I move
Is there a
approval.
motion? Hello?
I move approval.
Second. Susie, please call the roll.
McLean Hill?
Aye.
Susanna Reyes?
Aye.
Neiman Brady?
Aye.
Levine?
Aye.
4 ayes.
Motion's approved. We will hear items 11, 15, and 16 after management report and the approval of the minutes. So Marty, management report.
So briefly on the COVID-19 pandemic and what we're doing. So we're in the process of trying to get to what I guess will be the new normal for probably a number of months at this point. I think at the last board meeting, I told you that all the management employees were coming back to work on a full time as opposed to telecommuting part of the time. This week, we originally had plans. We had to slide them by a week because of everything that was going on. But this week we have all of our second level supervisors return to work. They, along with the managers, are working to finalize plans for more of a phased return to work for the rest of our employees. Beginning next week, we'll return to 100% strength in the field. We'd reduced some of our numbers in the field because we were concerned about social distancing and concerned that if some of our critical workforce became ill, that we may not be able to do critical water and power repair work, and as well as some very important customer work for connecting new customers. And so we'll be back to full strength with new social distancing plans and safety plans for the yards on next Monday. Also next Monday, we'll begin that all telecommuters will begin to report to the office on a regular basis. So people will typically be back in the office 1 to 2 days a week, depending on the size of the group and how much social distancing we can have. That'll put the building somewhere around this building particularly around 20% of capacity. I think we'll be at a variety of other capacities at other facilities, but the setups are very different. They're not large office building setups. So we have probably, my guess is normally 3,500 people in this building. We'll probably have 800 or 900 here now. So we're at pretty thin ranks, but we'll start to add people back in. Looking at what our original plan was when this started, we went to telecommuting with the idea that people would come on a regular basis to the workplace and rotate in. Shortly after we began telecommuting, there was a lot of concern about the pandemic getting worse, and so we basically told people to work from home as much as possible. So we're really setting ourselves up for what we think will be something that we have to sustain for the next number of months, maybe throughout the summer. We're hoping to get to maybe closer to a 50% occupancy in the building. That may not be possible. A lot of the issues will become how easy it is to get people in the building and on elevators and to their offices, and because there's certain places that we have to social distance besides just the office itself. And so there'll be some logistical constraints. We're still not van pooling at this time, so that also means we have additional parking needs at the building. And so putting all those together, we're starting this plan where everyone who's telecommuting will have a regular touch point time assigned in the office, so we can really track work, make sure we get everything done, not just the work that has to be done, but really the work that supports all the goals that we have in our budget for the coming year. There will still be there's some folks that have childcare issues that cannot be addressed, who are telecommuting still all the time from home and doing the work from there. Some of those may be assigned additional work in addition to what the regular job is. We also have folks who are at more of a high risk, either due to age or due to pre-existing medical conditions that continue to telecommute as well. But the vast majority of telecommuters will start to be in the office on a regular basis beginning next week.
Are you planning for the potential second wave, or have you begun to think about what occurs if there is a second wave in the fall, winter?
So that's a good question. So there's a lot of debate about a second wave, and of course every day changes a little bit. Sometimes you hear that it may be, how severe the virus may be easily transmittable, but not as severe. So we have the ability to go back to the way we've been very quickly. I think that what we're going to set up for the summer will help us to manage that better, because when this hit, we had a pretty quick exodus out of the building, and so this will really help us establish certain work criteria and really ways to monitor and measure work better than we were able to do initially, because we'll have more time to do it very intentionally. And so telecommuting has been a first-time experience for us, and so we've learned a lot, and we've learned a lot about limitations as far as IT connection with VPN connectivity, so that we have secure connections to the system, so we don't have any cybersecurity risks in terms of things like having enough electronics that people can take home and do their job. Even people who could do their work at home, but perhaps monitor size becomes an issue because they can't work effectively. So there's a lot of things we've learned during the course of this that I think will firm up during the course of the summer. So if we do have an outbreak that gets worse, or suppose we have an outbreak of something in the building, that we can revert back, but even better to work from home than we have in the past. We so far have still not had any employee-to-employee transmissions. We've had, I think, 15 or 16 cases now at the department. People have gotten sick from the outside. Our custodial staff is still doing a yeoman's job. They are really the front line defenders of everyone's health in this building, and they have done a remarkable job, and they're very proud of the work they've done, and they have every right to be. They have kept this place clean and safe for all the employees who've been here, which includes Sharon Grove's call center that's operating out of here very effectively. And so part of this is kind of staging back people in a very measured way, so we can make sure that doesn't change, that we continue to be safe in the workforce. But if we do have to step back at all, we'll be more prepared than we were initially, for sure.
Yeah, I would just encourage you. Thank you. I'm happy to hear that to continue to invest in the capacity to have remote working as if the scientists are correct or if the doctors are correct and we have avoided a major outbreak because of the extreme shutdown conditions, then I can only imagine that as we move away from that we will likely see more cases. And so at some point there's going to be an equilibrium. Don't know what that's going to be, but that will require us to be prepared so that if there is a pullback, that we can accommodate that pullback and continue to do what it is that we need to do as an agency.
Yeah, I agree. And again, like I said before, there's some people that have to come to work and do the job at their workplace. And so our goal initially by kind of thinning out the workforce was to make sure the people who had to be here could be here safely. And so there are people, different groups can work more remotely, more easily than others. And so it's really, like you say, it's really geared to, we want to be able to respond to that. But now we'll be able to have a lot more planning and a lot more opportunity to plan for that going in. Lewis Carr and Lindley they've added a lot of capacity to our connectivity, but it's still a challenge. I mean, in getting anything new in the IT world, whether it's computers or laptops or anything, it's almost impossible right now. So we're trying to stay ahead of that because we realize that it is kind of where we have to be prepared for in the future. We have actually piloted remote calling for some of the call center folks. And we're seeing how that works. We actually have, I think we now have 100 units deployed, so people can take calls from home as if they were working here in the call center. And so that's a whole new world for us. And so we're doing well along those lines. We're way better off than we were 2 months ago when we started this. We've added a quantum leap more in terms of connectivity and networking capacity. At the same time, it's still not where we want to be down the road if we have to, basically respond to another big outbreak. So, but we'll continue to be better prepared, and but we'll try to look as a little more like normal starting next week. But again, it'll be very sparse crowds in the building, and certainly, I originally hoped that we could get to people coming in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Monday, Wednesday. Losing my days here. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, then Tuesday, Thursday, then alternate, so kind of a 50% capacity. I'm not sure that we'll actually get there this summer, to be honest. And we're not going to push that. We're going to do everything very intentionally, very carefully to make sure that we're not overwhelming our capacity to stay safe. So unless anybody has any questions, that's our plans, and then hopefully they'll be successful as they've been in the past.
Thank you, Marty. Does anybody wish to make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of May 26th?
I move approval of the minutes.
I second. Susie, please call the roll.
McLean Hill,
Aye.
Susanna Reyes,
Aye.
Neiman Brady,
Aye. Sorry.
Levine,
Aye.
4 ayes.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to hear items 11, 15, and 16. We'll begin with item 11. Let's see. Nicole, do you want to, and/or Fred, do you want to raise questions, or do you guys want a presentation?
Why don't we start with the presentation?
Okay.
And then move.
And then feel free to interrupt.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
And you have it there? Okay.
I have it in front of me. Maybe you guys can just flip the pages. So the first page, if you go to the next slide, in accordance with the budget that was approved, the proposed spending for the PSRP is $1,073 million, and that includes $618 million of capital expenditures and $455 million of O&M expenditures. Next slide. The PSRP program supports generation, transmission, substation, other O&M, and distribution costs. And this slide here shows the dollar amounts that were in the budget. Now, this spending is done at the functional level. So it's not only the labor of the employees that's doing the work, but all of the A&G, the retirement, the death benefits, all the associated costs that goes along with that activity. Next slide. This is the residential median bill impact. So the residential median bill is 300 kilowatt hours a month. So the portion of the bill that would be going for reliability work would be going from $4.97 to $5.57 a month. Next slide. And for our commercial industrial customers, they also pay a kilowatt hour charge, but also a kilowatt, a facility charge on top for reliability purposes. And so the current charge would be going from $2.98 to $3.17. And so the next slide, I think, is just the conclusion. We would ask that you adopt the expenditures that were in the budget for the calculation of these rates. We did see the Office of Public Accountability's memo, and I think one thing that they raised concern about is because of the changes in the financial markets, we have anticipated in our final budget an additional $137 million of power system costs related to pension costs. That this is our projection as to what we're going to have to fund during fiscal year 2021. We actually won't know that final amount until the fall when we have our valuation report by the actuary done. And so Office of Public Accountability has laid out two measures. One would be to cut the budget, $38 million from capital, $31 million from O&M, or allow us to, in the fall, get the valuation report and determine if we should look at a regulatory asset and not fully fund these items until we know the actual dollar amount.
So I don't want to prevent Fred from making his comments, but because you've already started to address some of them, but I need some level setting or some understanding first. So just to be so I'm clear and looking through the materials, the RCA is capped then at this 0.003 and the 0.96, and that's why you then have this other mechanism, the IRC?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. And there is some calculations in there around a city transfer for 8%, which why 8% and why are these on top of expenditures? I understand that revenues need to come from somewhere, but I'm struggling with why you're doing some sort of imputed calculation on top of these expenditures, and how did this come about? So why 8% and why is this happening in here?
The 8% has historically been what the department has transferred to the city. To comply with the incremental rate ordinance, the city transfer was anticipated, so we do the calculations with it. However, we have a class action settlement in process where we now do not collect any city transfer on the 2016 incremental rate ordinance. So it's calculations to comply with the ordinance and with the transfer litigation. And basically the reason you add the 8% to the expenditures is this is a pass-through rate. So you only charge the customer for the actual cost to incur. So if we're going to incur those costs and bill it to the city or bill it to the customers, the city may anticipate an 8% transfer on top of that.
Okay. And then in your calculations, you got to forgive me, I get lost in the last page of Schedule D2 in how, well, I guess my first question is the RCA balancing account. I'm not clear on why what that is, why that's from 2016, why it's divided by 7 years.
That's per the ordinance. So when we had the 2016 rate ordinance, there was an under collection, and part of the adoption of the 2016 rate ordinance allowed us to recover that under collection over a 7-year period. And so that's part of the rate ordinance, that part of the calculation.
Okay, so will next year say
2022 will be the 7th year.
Okay, and then that will go away, or will it restart?
We are working with the Office of Public Accountability to have another rate review and plan to come back to the board in December of 2020 with some adjustments, and that should go away.
Okay. And then R7, you're multiplying by 0.9 to update to R5A. What's going on there?
The 0.9 is per the rate ordinance. I don't have the specifics as to why that was the calculation, but this was an effort of looking at the department's finances during 2015 and 2016 and truing up for the amounts that were under collected, and also providing a mechanism to fund reliability in the future. Okay. But I can get you a more detail on that 0.9.
And then where are both of you seeing, both Fred and you, seeing in these materials that you sent us pension cost increases? I mean, maybe I didn't read it closely enough, but I can't find it in anything in here.
It's actually in the receipts and appropriations. We, in the budget, we explain that there's a pension cost in there, and we show that that is going up. And so when we always share in advance the board materials with Office of Public Accountability, and we have shared that these costs are getting allocated across labor, and power system reliability is funded. There's a portion of department labor for all the people who do this work.
So just to be clear, it's not in what what we're seeing.
It's in the Schedule B and C, the budget amounts. It's the fully loaded cost. So there really isn't a detailed line item by cost type.
Okay, and then it's not the full 100 or so increase because it's allocated across the
Correct.
Right. Okay, and then. I'm eager to hear Fred's thoughts, but Fred, I know you are not a fan of a regulatory asset, so why are you, I'm eager to hear why in this particular situation it may make sense.
In this situation, it was a sudden, not predictable expense. It was a big expense. For the power alone, it's about $100 million. So, that's the result of an actuarial change that has to appear, or that change gets reflected on the financial books. But the question is, does it need to be put in the rates immediately, or can we smooth it out over time? That's one component. The other component is when the actuarial adjustment was made, it was reflecting the market conditions this spring. Well, as of yesterday, the market was back to roughly January 1. That number is likely to continue to fluctuate over time. So the number itself of roughly 100 million is very uncertain. So pushing that cost recovery forward in time would be very helpful, and a regulatory asset is a common method of doing that.
And the regulatory asset can take into consideration the fluctuations?
Yes.
Much more readily. Okay.
And then the other component is we're not proposing cutting the 38 million of capital and the 31 million in O&M permanently and immediately. We're suggesting that the expansion of that budget for capital and O&M gets held until we look at the decoupling rate changes, which are going to occur in late September for implementation January 1. And sales so far, we're worried that that may amount to as much as a 4 to 5% increase in overall rates. And this RCA adjustment is somewhere, as far as I can do on the back of an envelope, an impact to both commercial and residential rates of somewhere between 1 and 2%. So I think it helps to weigh these together. Where that's my recommendation. Number one is let's put off raising the budget for 3 of the 9 months of the year and weigh it against the decoupling and the overall impact on our beleaguered customers. And then also look at spreading the dollar amount. If it is indeed going to be in the $100 million range, if we could spread that cost impact out over a period of several years, because when the actuaries get nervous and raise their assessment of the pension costs, that's exactly the same time when all of our customers are typically suffering from the economy as well. So it's a double hit at the same time for the customers.
So just to, I'm clear on your recommendation, it's a deferral of a decision on that 38 and 31 million?
Yes.
And the consideration for the future as it relates to the, I guess it would be a deferral also on the pension component?
Yes, or smoothing it out over multiple years.
May I ask Ann why that doesn't work?
I would request the board to approve the item as we presented it, and as Fred mentioned, we're coming back in September with the decoupler on the base rate, and let us bring back to you the revised estimate on the pension cost and the projected base rate revenue target, and we could make a decision then on any proposed adjustments.
Ann, can you comment on if we were to make a change, what it would potentially impact?
Yeah, that was my question. Why does Fred's recommendations not work?
It's not that it doesn't work. It's that we really have June 30th is when the pension valuation date is, and so in the September we'll know exactly how much of an underfunded or additional required pension costs we'll have to make. And then by that time, we could determine if that regulatory asset is appropriate, and that would give my team the time to prepare that paperwork.
So we're saying we just don't have enough information at this time? Is that to make a change? Or?
Right. June 30th is the date that the actuaries look at the market value of the portfolio to see what are the annual required contributions going to change. Right now, we are working off a projection.
The pro and the con of implementing my recommendation now is one, it could reduce or eliminate the roughly 1 to 2% increase in customer rates now. The con is DWP has worked very hard to build its PSRP capital program, and this would delay contracting and or hiring to support this whole process until after October 1. And since it's taken a long time to build to where they are, I don't want to impede, or the customers in the long term might lose some benefit from the PSRP program moving forward quickly. The trade-off is the pain now on rates for customers versus slowing down the PSRP program by 3 months.
And to clarify, if we did that, we don't know that in the long run there'd actually be a change or not. Is that correct?
Correct, because I'm worried about the sticker shock when we see the impact of decoupling later in the year.
So Marty, I take it you feel it would be helpful for reasons that Ann and Fred have both mentioned to go ahead and approve this and then follow up on Ann's proposal for September.
Well, and I would say, I mean, looking back, so we have, the things that we adjust in our rates, the different pass-throughs, and now we have the decoupling and the other measures. And no matter when you pick a point in time, there's always a certain amount of history that's involved and a certain amount of projection that's involved. And one of the things we could always do is look out and say, well, let's kind of hold off now and not make the changes based on our current projection and see what the future has to do. The danger in that, I recall a time years ago in the water system where we did that with Met bills, where we actually we had an issue with undercollecting Met bills because we tried to self-smooth, outguessing the weather different than what the program was set up to do. And we ended up with a long time of trying to get back to square one. And so, I would just say that these programs, they reevaluate, whether once a year or twice a year for the different pass-throughs. Used to be quarterly, which was a lot more work. On the other hand, it was a lot more time sensitive, and a little more real time, I guess. But when we break away from the model and the calculations and what we're calculating on, there's always a danger. I mean, there's benefit in saying, well, the future is going to look better, or we don't know enough now. But when you do that, when you get too far off that center line, because you're always going to be above or below the center line that you're always kind of working against. When you get too far off that and start second guessing, predicting what you think is going to happen, you can really get sideways pretty quick. And so my concern is that, there's a rate system set up that's approved by the board, approved by the council, of factors that go in, and we should be very cautious before we second guess the factors based on what we think is going to happen down the road or the impact now, because we could inadvertently make the impact way worse later on, and we just don't know. So that's my only caution. I mean, the board's free to do what it wants to do, and certainly there's value to keeping rates as low as we can now. Also recognizing we're talking about rates versus bills. And that one of the drivers in rates is the fact that we're investing hundreds of millions of dollars to sell less product. And so we're not talking about bringing in more revenue. We're talking about the rate component that makes the revenue steady in order to keep our programs going. So with that, it's really a board decision. But I do get concerned. I appreciate what Dr. Pickle has to say and the comments. And we do hope that the stock market will return, that things will get back toward a better situation than they are right now, but we don't know. And so, like he did say, we could exacerbate the problem with decoupling later on. So that's the only thing, is that when you get into the weeds on this, the more you bring out a crystal ball versus the program that's kind of laid out, the more you have risks associated with what happens in the future.
The other thing that I would point out in this regard, Marty, is that the due date to approve these expenses under the ordinance is July 1st of this year. So if you don't have a final action by July 1st of this year, you kick a lot of that over, because under the ordinance, July 1st is your deadline, and you have to let the 5 council days pass. And with council meeting less, you run up against a deadline to where if you don't act on the item today or kick things over, you won't meet your July 1st deadline.
So, Joe, could the board exempt a certain... Go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was asked, could the board take a component and change it and modify it that way without a redone package, or how would that work?
Well, if you take out something today, you can't bring it back at a later point.
Could you approve it?
You can do it the other way, but you can't take something out today and say, hey, we'll bring it back in a couple months down the line.
We'd have to send Ann down and recalculate a number to bring back today before we finish the meeting.
Nicole.
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Question. Can we approve the full budget today but ask DWP not to ramp up to the higher level until we've had a chance to revisit the total impact in rates, including decoupling?
I think that we haven't even started the fiscal year yet, so we would have time to look at that. The budget has been approved, but the actual spending of it is what I think you're talking about.
Yes, thank you.
And I just want to add that the Power System Reliability Program, I think, is so absolutely critical to the functioning of the city and the future of the city that by no means do I want my questioning to suggest that I want to jeopardize that in any way. And the fact that that could delay it, I think, is not, in my opinion, a prudent decision. So I am supportive of proceeding, certainly with all the expenditures that make reliability more shorn up.
So is that a motion, Nicole?
I hesitate because I'm a little confused by the last statement that exchange between Ann and Fred on what can and cannot be done right now. So I don't know how to clarify what they just said, how it relates to the actual item that was agendized.
Can you guys put that in English, what you said?
Yeah.
Can I try, or Ann, do you want to try?
I was actually thinking that as we go through the spending, it's listed out, the 455 million and such. We could compare what we're tracking with its actuals versus budget and let you know if we're getting close. I don't know if you had said something different, Fred.
I was coming at the same question a different way. What I wanted to add is the budget that was adopted was 38 million in capital and 31 million in O&M over last year's budget, but GWP on the capital side didn't spend up to that budgeted amount in last year. So even keeping it at the same, there is a step up on the capital side. As I recall, and O&M was nearly fully spent. Am I correct?
Right. You're correct. And the additional capital, we have some wildfire hardening contracts that we plan to bring to the board in September or such. So, you know, we did plan for that.
Okay. So then I think a motion to approve this item, I would like to make that motion.
Second.
Susie, please call the roll.
McLean Hill,
Aye.
Reyes,
Aye.
Neiman Brady,
Aye.
Levine,
Aye.
4 ayes.
Thank you, everybody, for the
Thank you.
explanation and discussion.
That was a good discussion.
Yeah, it was a
Very
very
useful
good discussion. Thank you.
If I may, you know, this stuff is very nuanced, and luckily Ann and Dr. Pickle and a few others really, and Commissioner Neiman really understand this, and certainly we're very sensitive to the effects of on our customers. At the same time, all these things are the components that allow us to deliver what we need to for the city. So we'll continue to try to put this into as plain English as possible, because it's not necessarily easy to understand even when you deal with it every day.
And it was a very helpful discussion. Item 15, I believe Commissioner Reyes pulled this item. Do you want a presentation or do you have questions?
I just have questions. Is this Jeff who's going to answer?
Or is it, or Reiko, is this?
Is it?
Emil's going to answer. Okay, is Emil
All right.
online? Okay.
Is he online? All right. So first question is, why the big increase in the funding? What challenges are you, facing with this contract? The second thing is the increase in time as well. It's going to be through January 23 of 2024. Whereas you stated in the document that this amendment is just a bridge to allow sufficient time to process the RFP tentatively for October 2020. So my question there is, how long does it take to process the RFP? And what is that impact? So if will this contract end once a new contract is available from that RFP process?
Emil,
So,
can you
to
introduce
address your
yourself and
question-
can you and let everyone know what your role is and get a little background on this, please? Yeah.
Sure. So my name is Emil Abdel Shahid. I manage the Power System Information and Advanced Technology section. We operate and manage mission-critical systems that provide operators information and field crews information, as well as our engineering staff in the office. So to start to address your questions, the challenges that we're facing are mainly around transitioning transitioning to our DWP staff, and that really focuses on training and knowledge transfer. And so the GIS, if we can go to slide the third slide, to give you a little bit of context. One more. So the GIS itself is a ecosystem of applications that are used by various staff. And in order to properly transition this system, it requires a significant amount of training and coaching. Additionally, there's various business units that are going to be using these applications. For example, our utility map, which is up there, is a web-based map that's being used by the office staff as well as field staff. But there's also a ArcGIS and ArcFM platform that's being used for mapping and analytics. That's being used by a variety of different classifications of employees to perform various tasks, from data entry to analyzing the system and making better decisions. And additionally, we have transitioned paper processes from our legacy systems to new digital platforms that allow our staff to execute their functions on a single user platform. So for example, our poll data application, transitioning that team from a paper process to a digital process has required more extensive training and support as we go live and help them with the acceptance and the change management process. So that's been some of the challenges that we faced. In addition, while we're doing all that, we wanted to advertise this RFP, which we have not been able to do. And so looking at October of 2020, where we can advertise this RFP, and then following up with the advertising period, the evaluation, then the negotiation process, that can take anywhere from 12 to 18 months. And then that doesn't prevent any potential protests from coming to the board, which can further extend that time period. So if we look at advertising in October, looking at 18 months, that already puts us in 2022. And plus, we want to make sure that we have enough support to transition this over to a new vendor, which we will get support from this amendment as well to do that. So I hope that's answered your questions.
It does. My only my only concern is the length of time it takes to process the RFP. I think 18 months is really long. You already have the scope of work that you're doing today. You're kind of just like replicating that in that RFP. So the shorter the time frame, if you could work closely with our procurement folks to shorten that time frame, because then I suspect you're gonna be coming up with another amendment in the future because that RFP is delayed. So this is something that as an organization we really have to take a look at, how we work on our RFPs and contracts and the numerous amendments that come into play. And by the time you know it, that contract has ballooned. So I'm just putting that on record again, and we've talked about this for a while already, about the streamlining of those processes and making sure that we don't have scope creep in our contracts.
Commissioner, I appreciate your comments and very sensitive to that exact issue. Linda, I see LL up there. Linda, do you want to comment at all with what we're doing along with your work with Aaron and trying to help the process through to speed up the RFP process and either purchasing? Are you online there? There she is.
Hi, yes. So Aaron and I have been looking over the process, and we're trying to restructure the work so that it's handled differently than our old way of doing it, where we used to have a power water side of the house, and now we're going to create a expertise where they're dealing with particular types of contracts. So an RFP group, a materials group, and different types of groups, so that that's their goal, is just to work on that type of contract. That should help us increase the process. We're also working with several contractors outside to put several of our processes online so that we can do online review and approval of the stuff and make it faster. And then, of course, we're working with the division to also, there's a big disconnect about what we do and what we don't do. And some of it is because the RFP, once it does get to the purchasing, we move forward with it, but there is a lag time between the end users or the front users creating that RFP and preparing all that language and what the specifications that they want in the contract. So a lot of that is education of the user so that they understand how purchasing work or how to get all of that through the process. And that's been a really big challenge for us. We started that in December to do all that training, especially for newer employees as they embark on this. But with the COVID-19, a lot of that had to stop, and so we're figuring out a way to resume all of that fairly quickly to do all this, to be able to do this online.
Thank you.
Emil, did you have anything else that you wanted to add about the project?
We're having some network issues, so we couldn't really hear. We're trying to get it straightened out right now.
But with the COVID-19, a lot of that had to stop, and so we're figuring out ways to promote that.
Is that the recording? Playing back?
Yeah.
Linda's.
Online.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just calling.
Emil, did you have anything else that you wanted to add to the project?
Can you guys hear me? Just want to confirm.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's an echo.
Although there's some background conversation, I don't know where it is.
Is it recording? Is it?
It's really delayed.
Somebody has their computer on. Somebody's watching their computer while they're talking, so. Yeah, it's Lewis.
Okay, whatever that was, I think Jess was muted. Now it's back.
Lewis, it's you guys.
Can you guys hear me? Just want to confirm.
Enter your attendee ID number, followed.
The downsides of technology is too many speakers and microphones. They can't be close to each other. Emil, we can hear you if you have anything to add further.
No, I didn't. We weren't able to hear those last questions. So, but I don't have anything to add if there's no further questions.
That was it. No, that was my question.
I have no further question either.
Sorry. Did you get a good enough answer for what you were looking for, Commissioner?
Yes.
Yeah, I actually have a question. It's along the same lines, and of course, I saw this, this particular amendment and had many of the same concerns that have been expressed by Commissioner Reyes, and I appreciate the comments made by Ms. Lee. I am curious, however, as to when we can expect to actually start seeing this change. It is somewhat, or what it is that we can do to enhance the likelihood that that will be sooner rather than later, because notwithstanding raising the issues over and over and over and over and over again, we repeatedly are asked and repeatedly comply with amending contracts and, walking down this road. And I would be interested in a much more comprehensive understanding of how long we expect it to take to actually implement the change that we've been talking about. Period. Actually, period. That's what I'd like to know.
So unless Linda has anything to add, I don't have an answer for you yet. I can tell you that they were working toward this and making some progress and looking at our processes. Matter of fact, with less people being in the building, it's actually called into question a lot of our processes as to how many bureaucratic roadblocks we've built over the years that stand in our own way, that we're finding workarounds now, things that we may not want to continue as we get back to our normal work. But it has been, the last couple of months have been difficult to continue to make progress. Linda, do you have any comments you want to add further? Or we could give a report back to the board. What would you rather do?
We can do both, but I just wanted to address real quickly. As far as the restructuring and moving forward with that, Aaron has already mapped out the process and how we're going to their meeting, actually, we had already talked about meeting this week on Thursday to go over all that information and how we're going to restructure with water, power, and the joint system. The other thing that we've already piloted and it turned on this week was a IValua to do outside bidding and to help that enhance that process so you can do bidding online rather than having to walk into the building and turning an RFP. So there is work going on right now. We just haven't brought it into the board that's very visible yet because it's not a complete holistic change. And so as we develop more realistic and more evident stuff that I can show to the board, I will bring it to the board so that you're aware of what we're doing to change or speed up the process.
And as a part of that, I'd be curious to know what your targets are with respect to, internally, whenever I start a project, I typically have some view of when I want to have it complete by, and I may not hit my target, but I start with an end in mind. And I'm always curious as to what the target is in terms of when you anticipate or when you're trying to have these matters fully implemented, so that we can both benchmark and track against that. And obviously things occur that may result in some modification of those targets. But one of the things that always leaves me somewhat wanting is hearing that things are occurring without any real definitive understanding or appreciation for when we expect to be complete.
So what I'll do is I'll bring back a presentation to the board to provide more details on the roadmap that we have for how we're going to upgrade the ERSP system, the purchasing system, what we're doing within purchasing itself to streamline some of our processes.
Thank you.
Are there other questions or comments on this item? Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
I second. Susie?
McLean Hill,
Aye.
Reyes,
Aye.
Neiman Brady,
Aye.
Levine,
Aye.
4 ayes.
Thank you. Our last open item agenda is item 16. Again, Commissioner Reyes, a presentation or questions?
I think Commissioner Neiman Brady also has some questions on this one, but I can start. It's like 2,200 pages, and I must admit I did not read the whole thing. Okay, but I know just tracking it is like this first open access transmission tariff, or OAT, was approved in March 12, 2002. Then we had our updated terms and condition rates in June 2014. That was an amendment. Then there was this public stakeholder process held in November 2019. And then we had the February 2020 recommended changes again to the non-rate terms and conditions of OAT. And then April 3, 2020, there's a supplemental certificate and additional changes to the non-rate terms and conditions. And now we're here. So I just want, first of all, I wasn't expecting the Burbank and Glendale feedback. I already had my questions, but Why those? I know it's a very iterative, intentional process, so I give it to our staff for really thinking. But I think with us being intending to be unique and a little bit different from the other entities that are participating in the EIM, has brought us to this situation now where we are proposing creating that confined BAA, right? So I just want to also have to unpack that, to explain it to the board. What guarantees do we have that now that thing will work, given the protests and concerns of our neighboring municipal utilities?
So if I could, if Reiko could lead us through and really, as plain English as possible, so I understand it, kind of where this came from and what it is and what it does, why the amendments, and then of course the critical part now is why we need this amendment for the energy imbalance market, and then also we believe there are opportunities to really work with Glendale and Burbank closely for their advantage as well. But this piece right here you're seeing may not be the mechanism that they're looking for, and we have some disagreement on how that's supposed to be implemented, but we have pretty strong feelings as to what the agreement and the process is that we're currently involved with. So Reiko, go ahead.
Commissioner, before Reiko starts, I do want to just make clear something on the submission that Burbank and Glendale did. In their protest, they acknowledge that the OAT language before the board is something that's been universally adopted and approved by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and other governing bodies of municipal participants in the EIM, and they actually even categorize it themselves as a pro forma EIM OAT. What they have issue with is not being able to use some non-OAT agreements that they would like to use in this process. So I think it's very important to delineate those two items. And as the general manager mentioned, DWP does have opportunities to further discuss those implementation issues with them. But again, those are implementation issues, not OAT issues. So I think it's very important for that understanding to be had as you listen to Reiko's presentation.
Go ahead.
Just to clarify something you just said, so it's not in their concerns are not directed at the OAT, but at the implementation of existing documents and how that relates to the OAT.
Right. They would like to have some existing grandfathered contracts to be used for these transmission purposes. So again, it's not this OAT, it's them having the ability to have existing contracts used for the EIM.
So Joe, they're not questioning our use of the OAT here. It's something related.
It's the implementation, yes.
Okay.
Reiko, your mic's not on for some reason.
Yeah.
Hello.
I neither
there we go.
hear nor see Ray. I don't hear or see Reiko.
Oh, we need to.
Can you hear me now?
Angle?
Now I hear you.
Okay.
We were sort of.
Can we change the camera to see now?
So there are a number, as has been discussed, agreements that LADWP has with both Glendale and Burbank and other cities that date 40, 50, 60, 70 years into the past. And a number of those agreements were negotiated under terms and conditions that are very different than how they are now. And those agreements, some of the ones we're talking about now, have very low costs to them. And I'll give you an example. One of those transmission service...
Not completely clear to me, Reiko. A very low what?
Transmission rates. So as an example, one of the contracts we're talking about charges 80 cents per kilowatt month to use transmission. Contrast that with our current OAT, which is about $3. So it's about 75% lower than the OAT rates that are in existence today. So the disagreement really relates to how they use those contracts negotiated decades ago in a form and manner that are very different than the circumstances that exist today in this new EIM market. So again, that distinguishes from the OAT. The OAT is pro forma and would allow continued discussions on that. If it's okay with the board, I'd like to go through a short presentation and then make a couple comments, if that's all right, and then answer questions.
I think even without concern over the issue and people's feelings, I think it's good education for everyone, so please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Louis Ting, who is our Director of Power Planning and Development, that will be making this presentation as he manages the transmission planning group.
Good morning, commissioners. Can you hear me or can you see me?
We can hear you and see you. We couldn't see, at least I couldn't see Reiko, but I can see you.
It's your lucky day.
Because she's in the boardroom with us.
That's, as you stated earlier, Cynthia, from this angle, seeing who's in the boardroom is a challenge.
It's very difficult, yes.
So if I may start with slide number 2. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I think this is the background information that Commissioner Reyes already mentioned. So back in 2001, the board and council approved the first OAT, and then 2014 and 2017, subsequently the board and council also approved the First Amendment and Second Amendment. What's in the proposed OAT revision has really enabled us to participate in the Western Energy Imbalance Market hosted by CAISO, and also to revise the term and condition that's not rate-based or there's non-rate for the tariff. And also to update our real power loss study. We spend a lot of time with a third-party consultant to come out with a more reasoned loss factor for our power system, which all the things that we're doing here are consistent with all the other EI entities that have joined the CAISO Energy Imbalance Market already. Next slide, please.
So, Louis, let me interject here for just a second. A logical question is, why today, why now? On approving the OAT. So there are a number of things. We have hired software vendors that have to come in and make program modifications to allow our participation in the California Independent System Operators Energy Imbalance Market. Those vendors need to have certainty of what our OAT, which is the terms and conditions on how you participate in LA's transmission system, how those are rolled into the software programming. The vendors nor us would recommend starting on this until you have fairly good certainty that you know what those rules are. The CAISO also needs to test the functionality of once the software is implemented. We have to do parallel playing in the sandbox with them to understand bid to bill and how all this gets implemented as we anticipate it to. There are currently 5 entities joining the ISO, the CAISO markets for EIM in 2021 with LA. The CAISO has never implemented more than 2 in any year. In addition, the following year, the CAISO also has 5 entities. So if LA drops out of the queue and cannot meet its April 1 deadline, there's only 1 day each year that you can join the CAISO markets to participate. We would have to get back into the queue, likely push us back to 2022, and that delay, 2023, would require LA to fund about 35 full-time equivalents for that 2 years for that delayed implementation. So timing is of the essence for this.
And one more parenthetical thought. Could you remind us why we're playing in the energy imbalance market, why it's important for us?
Absolutely. So the energy imbalance market is a real-time market that allows you to participate and buy energy from a wider geographic footprint. Ideally, you would be able to get access to more renewables. You could back down some of your higher cost generation and overall reduce the cost to supply your ratepayers. When you have excess, you would be able to offer that into the market that the CAISO will clear based on the lowest cost resource to be able to have additional sales and actually optimize and monetize the benefits of the assets that we have here. It's both for transmission, you have to have access to that, as well as generation.
Thank you.
Reiko, is there a way to perhaps imprecisely but generally estimate the economic significance of this to us?
Are we talking about the renewable benefits? The market benefits, the market, I believe, has had about $1 billion in benefits from the EIM market with the participants they have today. As more people, more entities join the EIM market, as well as the renewable portfolio standards increase for various states within the Western region that participate in those markets, the benefits will likely increase. There is a point where the benefits may be somewhat limited when everyone has excess generation. One of the comments in the filing is that LA is not realizing the full potential benefits for its ratepayers, and by not accessing the additional megawatts of transmission that these cities would bring. I would argue that when LA would need those resources, or let me put it this way, when the cities have excess transmission, will likely be in the winter and spring when LA already has an abundance of transmission. When LA would need them, which would be your summer peak period, there will be no additional transmission capacity available from the city's participation. That would be my personal beliefs based on the markets and what I know about LADWP's resource portfolio. Go ahead, Louis.
Thank you.
Okay. Wait, before you do that, I'm sorry. Does Burbank or Glendale have some technical analysis or production simulation models or something along those lines that indicates something different than what you just said?
No, I believe that based on their filing that they submitted yesterday, they're basing it on statements that have been in the market that the benefits from participation in EIM, and those benefits are largely in the springtime when our loads are very low, and so we don't have the ability to use we certainly have the transmission available to maximize our benefits, and additional transmission will likely not provide incremental benefits. Okay, Louis, go ahead.
Okay, so in the new attachment, which really what it does is it allows LADWP to participate as an EIM entity, or what we created as an EIM balancing authority area for LADWP that gives the rights and responsibility as a schedule coordinator and the entity, and the wholesale transmission customer rights and the responsibility pertaining to EIM. What the importance of this is that it actually protects some of the grandfather agreements that both Burbank and Glendale has essentially addressed in their protest. So what this does is actually protects them. And also another element of this amendment for the oath is to update the real power loss factor that we conduct with a consultant called Enfront. And they performed a study and found out that our losses due to our system upgrades and continuous system upgrades on the bulk power side, that our AC losses have reduced significantly from 4.8% to about 1.78. And the DC pretty much remained the same with the incremental upgrades and the renewal of the system. And so as you can see, the new proposed losses have reduced incrementally. Next slide, please.
Louis, what accounts for the difference in the first one on the prior switch?
Sure. So essentially for the alternating current system, we've been doing a lot, for example, the power system reliability program. that you're just approved on the incremental rates. That has allowed us to replace a lot of system, plus in our transmission line that we have upgraded and upgraded the equipment all the way from the stations at the end of the transmission line, including the line itself, so that help us tremendously on the realizing the lower losses on the lines, on the systems.
Right. Great. Thank you. Very helpful. Thank you.
So next slide, please. So some of the processes that we went through, and it was a very robust that we went through, and we met with all the stakeholders. We started the process back in November of 2019, and we made the announcements. And subsequently, we held a total of 6 public stakeholder meetings, including 3 subsequent meetings that were very technically oriented since the November announcements. And we continue to meet with Burbank and Glendale even after the public stakeholder process has ended during their appeal. Totally, we responded to over 350 comments and questions, and we essentially received the written comments from PowerX and also in the city of Burbank and Glendale, and we have addressed all of them. And essentially, our response was sent back on April 3rd of 2020 back to the city of Burbank and Glendale. And so in addition to this particular proposed amendment for your consideration, we're also looking at, next slide, please. Okay, so I apologize, but obviously that slide didn't make it up there, but we do have another 1 or 2 amendments coming to the board later on this year. We're trying to address some of our emergency power sale to third parties. We want to make sure that the rights and responsibilities between the parties that we deal with, that we afford the same rights that we have. So we're looking to address that with the emergency sales, and we're going to update our transmission and ancillary services rates, and also the generator interconnection procedure and agreement to incorporate some of the recent FERC order and FERC rules. So that's still upcoming with the next amendment. So just want to give you a heads up on that's also forthcoming. So any other questions or comments?
If I could, so Rego, just to kind of finish Lewis's comments. So we know that this is time sensitive in terms of we cannot afford to miss the April 2021 date. How does this then reconcile with Glendale and Burbank's concerns? Our partnership is very important to us. Our relationship is very important to us. We're the balancing authority for them as well. And so I know that's not necessarily this vehicle, but what are we, to the extent you can talk about it, what are we doing to make this work for everybody?
So I will go into some of my comments, which will, I believe, answer your question. So the item before you today is the consideration of the Third Amendment to the LA's Open Access Transmission Tariff, or OAT, particularly Amendment O, governing the terms and conditions for participation in the California Independent System Operator, or CAISO's, Energy Imbalance Market, or EIM. We've discussed the robust stakeholder process, including addressing over 350 written comments during that process. It's important to note that we have about 26 customers that take transmission under the OAT. In this process, we had 2 entities provide comments, including PowerX as well as the combined cities. During this process, our interested stakeholders, including those taking transmission service from LA under the grandfathered agreements, and these are agreements that were entered into decades ago with highly discounted rates as compared to our OAT, or transmission customers that also take service under our current OAT, participated in the process. We carefully considered the questions and responded to concerns, and during the process there was obviously a lot of give and take where we carefully weigh the impacts to LADWP, its ratepayers, as well as its OAT customers. The issues can be controversial, as often there is a need to compromise as we carefully consider other things, including the benefits and burdens of each challenge. Unfortunately, as you can imagine, not all issues can be decided amicably. Late yesterday afternoon, you received a pretty lengthy protest from the cities of Glendale and Burbank Water and Power Utilities. The protests submitted by the cities last evening focused on issues associated with the implementation of LA's participation in the EIM, specifically the decisions not to amend these grandfathered agreements so that the transmission may be used in the EIM, not the proposed OAT changes that are before the board today. Subsequent to posting the GM certificate on LA's DWP's OASIS website, Burbank filed an appeal that also contains many of the original issues and those that were repeated in the protest that you received. Again, focusing on the amendment of non-OAT agreements so the transmission may be used in the EIM. Although not required to do so because the appeal was not submitted timely, LA once again went through each of the concerns. The supplemental GM certificate dated April 3rd responded to that appeal brief. And because the cities did not like LADWP's answers and decisions contained in the previously mentioned General Manager's certificate and supplemental certificate, you received the protest letter yesterday. The cities continue to argue that LADWP must amend their non-OAT agreement so the transmission may be used in the EIM. Both Burbank and Glendale have the option, but not the obligation, to voluntarily participate in the CAISO's EIM market by converting their non-OAT agreements to OAT service, which LA has offered, including offering transmission discounts. We worked very hard to ensure that their treatment will be comparable and not unduly discriminatory or preferential regarding how LA and utilities within its balancing authority also participate in these markets. We will continue to work with Glendale and Burbank. As Marty said, they are important partners to us as we all strive to reach our aggressive greenhouse gas and renewable goals, as well as all other customers to provide for their voluntary participation in the CAISO's EIM markets effective April 1, 2021. Up until very recently, the cities made clear that they did not want to be impacted by LADWP's participation in the EIM. But at the 11th hour, when LA posted its third amendment to the OAT to participate in the EIM, the cities suddenly changed their mind and asked LA to engage with them to facilitate their participation now. That is what LA has been doing ever since. It is staff's recommendation that the board approve and recommend the city council also approve the third amendment to LADWP's open access transmission tariff as outlined in your board letter, including Appendix O that governs LA's, as well as the other entities meeting specific criteria, voluntary participation in CAISO's EIM market. As the cities acknowledge in their protest, the OAT language before the board has been universally adopted and approved by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and the governing boards of municipal participants in the EIM, such that it has been characterized by the city as pro forma EIM OAT provisions. Parallel, LA will continue to work with the cities, with Burbank and Glendale, on the implementation issues that they raise in their protests, specifically on ways in which they can maximize the benefit of their non-OAT transmission agreements to participate in the energy imbalance market. LA is confident that we can resolve these issues as we have done in the past. And I want to say that we have worked very closely. We talked about the loss adjustments we're making that here. That came about by a request for the cities during the last stakeholder, the second amendatory OAT agreement, requested that we perform one. We agreed, and we did, and that benefit will be realized. And the other thing, in a prior process for an OAT amendment, they requested that LA DWP offer network integrated transmission services. We did that. They haven't taken service under it, but that would be an excellent way to participate in the EIM markets, and we're working with them actively now to show them the benefits and how they can realize the benefits to their ratepayers also by participating. So with that, I'll answer questions.
You thought the
So,
rates was
Reiko,
complicated.
how do you really feel about this, Reiko?
I think they're important stakeholders with us, and I think it's important that we continue to work through these issues. But we also need to make sure that we're able to participate in the CAISO EIM on April 1, because it will be very detrimental to LADWP to extend it past that, potentially up to 2 years.
It was really a rhetorical question.
Okay.
Do commissioners have questions or comments?
Just one more clarification. Can LADWP allow for future expansion or contraction, right? Should Burbank or any other customer not participating in the EIM meet the requirements later on?
Absolutely. They can come in on April 1 of any year. We are coming in next year. They can come in any time after that.
Good to know. Thank you.
And we will certainly not leave the other communities high and dry. This is an inclusive effort on our part. So,
Fred, is that you?
Yes, it is. One, we support DWP's moves toward joining and conforming with the EIM conditions. And this is really a very long policy arc. The move toward open access transmission started in the U.S. industry in the late 70s and was embodied in legislation and policy by the early 90s. And open access transmission tariffs were common thereafter. And two of the main policy goals are transparency and non-discriminatory service. So everybody sees the same deal, gets the same deal at the same time. As secondary to that, the move towards organized markets like the EIM likewise started implementation in the mid-90s and is now the overwhelming standard throughout the U.S. So DWP's participation, I expect, will benefit customers and also benefit others in the West. So I think we should move ahead.
I move approval. Is there further discussion? Is there a second?
I have just a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Only because, we did receive this rather lengthy document from the city's council, so I just want Joe to, I suspect that you've had an opportunity to review this.
Yes, along with, we have Van S. Feldman and Malcolm McLennan, nationally recognized expert in this area, as our outside counsel. And we have reviewed it, compared it to what they've filed before, and remain confident in our opinion that we are sound in moving forward with the ODA.
Okay, thanks. And I just want to just be clear in my own mind, because you said an awful lot, Reiko, and you stressed a great deal about all the efforts that we've made to work with the parties, which they've indicated in this filing they consider to be woefully inadequate. But from my perspective, I think what I heard, and I just want to make sure that this is clear, this is being recommended to this body because it is the staff's professional judgment that this is in the best interest of the City of Los Angeles, of LADWP, and our ratepayers. Is that correct?
Without question.
And while we certainly want to be respectful of stakeholders and, where possible, reach agreement and accommodation, at the end of the day, our obligation is to pursue efforts that optimize, that permit optimum benefit to the Department of Water and Power. Is that your...
And to the extent it's non-discriminatory and not preferential, that we treat ourselves like the other participants, yes, you're correct.
Okay, well, I want to commend the work that's before us. I know that this has been quite a while coming.
Big team.
Yes, it is.
Big team.
We've been hearing about, certainly I think I've been listening to you discuss the benefits of these kinds of this movement, and I'm happy to see it before us today and excited to support it.
Is there further discussion? Is there a second to my motion to approve?
Second.
Susie, go ahead and call the roll.
Commissioner Reyes?
Aye.
Neiman Brady?
Aye.
McLean Hill?
Aye.
Levine?
Aye.
4 ayes.
Thank you. Council, I assume we do have action items and do wish to go into closed session.
Yes, what I would like to do, in the past, we've been retreating to our own offices for closed session, but since we have two of the commissioners here and we're all set up, what I would recommend we do is when we adjourn this meeting, to go ahead and close off this WebEx session, and then maybe take maybe a 10-minute break real quick, and then reconvene. You all have the closed session meeting invite from Arlene Rodriguez, and that's a separate WebEx session that just the board will be able to log into, and we'll log back the boardroom in so we can just convene the way we are right now.
So at this point, we
12:25. Is that good for everybody? So Joe, go ahead and give us the magic words.
At this point, we will recess in a closed session, and in accordance with California Government Code Section 54957.1, we will report any final actions taken therein. We are in recess.